In today's episode of the Motorhome Matt podcast,
we're diving into real-world motorhome prices in the UK right now.
In the news, the Highland Council have introduced a motorhome and camper van scheme.
And we answer your questions on storing items in a gas cabinet, insurance for commercial motorhomes, and overweight allowances.
Overweight?
Overweight.
Allowances. Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Industry insights and expert advice for the world of motorhomes, caravans and camper vans, brought to you by thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe.
Please remember to follow on your favourite podcast app, and if you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe.
Something's been happening over the border in Scotland, hasn't it, Matt? Can you fill us in?
Yes, indeed, Keith. Yeah, 40 quid will get you a week's worth of membership to this motorhome camping scheme where you can park in allocated places and the money goes to those local councils. It's brilliant.
Isn't that brilliant? Because I was reading up about it, and basically you can't put a table and chairs outside your motorhome once you have parked up. It seems a bit restrictive.
Yeah, it did. Well, then you go to a campsite or an allocated place where you are allowed to do that. But this is about trying to manage people who want to off-grid camp, or dare I use the phrase wild camp. And they're doing it by being part of this scheme with the support of the local council. So presumably they're going to put bins in the locations where you can park, and these places are going to be monitored and managed, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, good idea. How can you be wild camping in a car park? It doesn't really sort of fit, does it?
In a motorhome, no, it's like wild swimming in the bath. So it says supporting the scheme allows you to directly contribute for the impact your journey has upon the environment and local communities of the Highlands. Your membership will allow you to access a range of benefits that will enhance your journey.
Oh.
The Highland Campervan and Motorhome Scheme costs £40, including VAT, and lasts for 7 days from the start date selected during purchase.
And when you park, it's first come, first served, I understand. So
That's
if you've got one, you can't pre-book, and just got to turn up and keep your fingers crossed.
Keep your fingers crossed. A lot of campsites, of course, are unhappy about it because they're trying to charge something similar to that for one night. And they're saying, well, people just won't come here. That is probably true. There are going to be winners and losers when a scheme like this is introduced. But I think for the people of Scotland, then I think this is probably a winner.
And if you want to put your table and chairs outside, then go to the campsite instead. Our product feature of the week. Now, what have you got there, Matt?
Under the desk, we have got our little socket tester that we sell at thatleisureshop.com. This is essential for your motorhome. It detects whether you've got reverse polarity, so you're live and neutral wired up the wrong way, if you've lost an earth out of the socket in your van. You could test the campsite socket as well with a little adapter. They're $9.99, that is all. And we had them specially made to be this tiny little size. So the ones you normally buy are twice the size of this. And often a motorhome socket's got a flap on it and they won't plug in because the flap's in the way. So these miniature little ones are ideal in a motorhome or camper van, and I love them.
That's a good idea. And if you plug it in and the electricity goes off, this thing clicks here, then you got something wrong, isn't that right?
Well, not quite. So the little lights on it tell you the status of your electrical supply. It tells you the voltage, and the button on here tests your trip. So it shorts the live to the earth and makes your motorhome trip out, so you can actually test your motorhome is working properly.
So for £9.99, and by the way, you can get it cheaper, 10% off your first order with the code Motorhome Matt. That's one word, Motorhome Matt, at thatleisureshop.com.
Go and get one.
What show are we talking about this week then, Matt?
We're talking about Campervan Camp Out. I love this show. This is a Warner show, and it's far more of a music festival. Sarah Cox Power Hour. Tickets are nearly sold out, I'm told, as we record this. So head to mhmp.info/Warners to get all the details. It's the 3rd to the 5th of May. Day tickets and weekend passes are available. It's going to be a great weekend, and I hope to see you there.
It's the middle-aged wigging out. Save with code Motorhome Matt. Again, one word, Motorhome Matt at mhmp.info/Warners.
Do you know what? A day ticket, 15 quid, and that includes seeing Sarah Cox on the Saturday night. Bargain.
At the gig. Seeing Sarah Cox on a Saturday night at the gig.
Well, okay, yeah. You can't pop round a house.
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Brought to you with thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe. Let's dive into the main bit of today's podcast, and it is pricey. It's expensive. It is how much a motorhome is likely to cost you in 2025. I've got the first question for you. Can you still get a motorhome for under £50,000?
Yes, you can. In fact, Peter Vaughan...
Will it have wheels?
3 of them. Peter Vaughan and I from Out and About Live we did a piece together, and we were wandering around the Yorkshire Motorhome and Campervan show trying to hunt out motorhomes under 50k, and over dinner, as we planned this kind of tour for the following day, I said, you won't find many, if any, and there were loads. I was really taken aback, and they were still second-hand, a lot of money, but there was plenty to choose from. There was even a family 4-berth motorhome for 25k, which I thought was actually pretty good value. There was a brand new motorhome from Adria, the Active Duo. This is the Renault with a pop roof, so a camper van, and that was £17,000 off the new screen price of 65k, therefore 48 grand. That is a bargain. It really is.
And the thing is, when you buy second hand, you don't pay as a consumer, as a punter, a Hillman hunter, a VAT, do you?
No, when you're buying second-hand, no. As a dealer, I pay VAT on the margin. So say I clear £5,000 of profit, I've got to pay VAT on that. But you as the consumer, no. You pay VAT on the new one, but not the second-hand one. So
you buy new, you pay VAT. That's 20%, isn't it? So, you know, we're looking at prices now, £100,000 and above. That's £20,000 in the Customs and Excise pocket, isn't it?
It is, yeah. The government are the winner as prices go up, where VAT stays fixed. I wish they would bring VAT down, but that's another conversation for another podcast.
Well, they could bring VAT down on certain items. I mean, because that's a big chunk of change, isn't it?
Hospitality, leisure and tourism all should be, I think, 10 or 12% VAT. That would be a game changer for our industries, without a doubt. It came down during the pandemic. It went down to 5%. And then went up to 12, I think it was 12.5%, I can't remember. But the difference it made to our profitability, it meant we employed staff and we were able to grow. 20% VAT is a killer, and it's the enemy of the small business, it really is. And
the thing is, of course, is you know, if you have this nominal £100,000 motorhome or camper van, I'm using that figure because it's easy for me to do the subtraction. That's £20,000 of your hard-earned or, you know, your retirement fund, which... it's a bit like stamp duty when you buy a house. You're not buying anything for it. It's a penalty, isn't it?
It's dead money. Yeah, it's dead money. And the potential is that you buy that £120,000 motorhome brand new, you could sell it a year later for maybe over 100k. Possibly. The market could be strong enough to do that still. But traditionally, the depreciation curve was 20% loss in year 1. That was typical. And then 10% in year 2, 5% in year 3, and then a kind of a plateau. That was a traditional depreciation curve that, you know, I would work on. It's not quite that harsh anymore. But what was fascinating, as I say, is motorhomes well under 50k. It used to be, I'd say, pre-pandemic, 2018, that 40k was a very average motorhome price. But it's now very much 50k plus, I would say, for a motorhome that's less than 5 years old.
Now, everything goes up in price, but after the pandemic and we've had the issues with the Ukraine war, and what we didn't realise was a lot of wiring looms in particular came from Eastern Europe, and that was all disrupted. But you've said in the past that things have sort of settled down. Now, yeah, they have settled down, but they've settled down and they're costing £25,000, £30,000, £40,000 more, aren't they?
They are, yeah, absolutely. And there's been this kind of catalyst of change over the last 5 years, which has pushed prices up. And the big fear is the prices are going to collapse. This is a price bubble and it's going to burst. It's not. It's absolutely not. Dealers are selling at new prices which are going to be sustained, and prices for 2026 next year and beyond are going up again. So I think, you know, this is a new normal. I was chatting to a friend of mine, he's also a motorhome journalist, Nick Harding, and he said friends of his were about to embark on buying a motorhome, and he went, wow, careful, you know, they're a lot of money now, you know, they've really gone up in price. And they said, yeah, we know, we understand that, but we want to do it, we're going to buy one. And, you know, once you've normalised the price, you've set the market price, that's it. You know, businesses, dealers are not just going to give stuff away for less than they paid for it. Their charity commission numbers haven't come through yet. You know, they are in business, and so those prices are staying strong. I think used is under pressure, And so used prices are really feeling a bit of pinch at the moment as new prices are being discounted, because we know there's lots of stock about, and 2024 models are rife across dealer forecourts, and so manufacturers are helping fund a discount, and that is putting pressure on pricing, which makes now a great time to buy one. But I think the market is just going to continue to grow and go up in price.
Well, motorhome seems to be out of my price bracket. What about camper vans?
Yeah, they've become, I think they're more under pressure with pricing. I think there's two corners of the market where we're seeing pressure. That is camper vans, because there are just so many of them. It's almost every street corner there was a camper van converter post-pandemic, and family motorhomes. I think those prices are under pressure because for many families this is now not affordable.
So when you say they're under pressure, you mean they're going up or going down?
They're going down, and I think the pressure to go up is hard. So if you've got a family motorhome, and yes, the market might say it's worth second-hand 50k, it really needs to be 45 to get that family interested in it. And that 50k has become a magic threshold. It used to be 40. I think it's gone up to 50, where families are looking now up to 50 and they think that's affordable, whereas only a few years ago it was very much 40k.
Yeah, and a few years ago as well, post-pandemic, and just as the Ukraine war got started, dealers were very much in control of manufacturers, because there was a bit of a dearth, wasn't there, of new not models, but new completed camper vans and motorhomes coming through. That seems to have turned on its head. The market seems to have been supplied.
Yeah, and there is oversupply for sure. And the camper van market, as I say, is very crowded. And we're seeing models there, manufacturers producing models that are much lower in price in order to get sales.
And some dealers are feeling the pinch and taking the hit, and quite a few have closed, haven't they?
Yeah, and there's lots of reasons why that's happening. If they're a dealer with a lot of brand new stock, the manufacturer wants paying, they're sat on a credit line, and that lender just goes and collects the payment for that batch of stock. It's not the manufacturer doing it, it's usually a lender. It's called a curtailment payment, and that can be in the hundreds of thousands of pounds if there's millions of pounds worth of stock on the forecourt. I was chatting to a friend of mine with a big dealership. They've got 21 million pounds of rolling stock sat there for sale. It's very crowded. That's a big number. That's a lot of motorhomes to sell.
Number, yeah.
And so they're motivated to start selling them because they have to start paying for them in a minute. And dealers get so long, 6 months or 12 months, it depends on the term of the agreement, but they're there not at their cost, they're there as a lender's cost for interest-free for so long, and then they have to start paying them. And those curtailment payments are very painful. I've talked about them before. And so that's what drives discounts. And the manufacturers wants that dealer to survive and move their stock on and sell it so that the dealer can take next year's stock and the manufacturer can keep producing stock. When the dealers aren't selling stock, they go, whoa, hang on, I don't want any more. That gives the backlog to the manufacturer. So the knock-on effect is massive behind the scenes. So, as consumers, the part we have to play is to go and buy a motorhome and take advantage of the deals. So, you as a listener to this and consumer of the market have your role to play in this, which is to go and make that decision and buy one.
And that's the issue, isn't it, with any dealership structure, where you have manufacturers supplying dealerships who are selling one make, for instance. If that does close, if that does get into trouble, it's one outlet fewer, isn't it, for that manufacturer to get those motorhomes or camper vans on the road. Yeah,
and that stock ends up being distributed amongst the dealer network, or there might be another dealer that appears.
And the consumer has to travel further
Possibly.
to a dealership for that.
And then there's all the issues as well of after sale. Where do I go for my warranty repairs? I've now got to travel an extra hour, this knock-on effect. And this is where, we need innovation in the market, and there is an opportunity for entrepreneurial spirit to step in and set up a new dealership in an area where one is closed. And I think that will happen. happen.
You've got these car supermarkets. Is there not a similar thing for motorhomes?
That's been talked about. I mean, motorhome dealerships have always been multi-brand, so very different to the new car dealers, where you have an Audi dealer and a Ford dealer. Motorhome dealerships have always been multi-franchise, so you get an Adria, Carthago, Deathlef all in one dealership. That's been very commonplace for a very long time. So I think that will continue to grow. The challenge with seeing thousands of motorhomes for sale in one dealership is the cost of them and actually funding them. That's the problem. Yeah. 21 million quid is a lot of motorhomes, and there are dealers in the country that are bigger than that, much bigger than that, in fact. And we're into hundreds of millions, and the curtailments are huge.
And what about buying a motorhome through an auction? You hear a lot about cars on the TV and some TV series as well. Can you go to an auction? I understand it's sold as seen, but do people sell motorhomes on that basis? Because I've got my 100 grand, I want to buy a motorhome. I'm in a powerful position. I want to use that money the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely you can. In my experience, though, motorhomes that go to auction are there for a reason, and that reason is usually that they couldn't be sold anywhere else. And they're normally riddled with problems. So I would be very cautious about buying a motorhome at an auction. You get time to look at it and review it, but you don't get time really to do a full HAB check, damp check, and everything else that you really need to be doing before you buy it. So unless you know exactly what you're buying, then definitely buyer beware. I would be very cautious.
Yeah, they're the place for experts and dealers, aren't they? HAB check, by the way, habitation check. Even I know that.
You've learnt something.
I have. And used prices remaining strong. You were talking earlier about them, particularly in camper vans, coming under pressure.
Yeah.
And then we hear another one that they're remaining strong. What's the truth?
Yeah, they are remaining strong, and more so as new prices go up. But what we need to see is the wheels turn, and I think the market has just slowed down at the moment. We're in this cost of living crisis, aren't we? We've I think talked ourselves into it, and people are taking their time before making a buying decision, where only a few years ago it was we saw it, we want it, we're having it, and you just bought it, and we'd advertise a motor and be sold in minutes, and now it's months again, and that's a far more controlled environment. But the industry has definitely slowed down. But having been to quite a few shows now where we've seen new motorhomes for sale and used motorhomes for sale, I have been very encouraged by the number of motorhomes that have sold at those weekends, and dealers continuing to report sales after the show. And that's a really good sign. That's a sign that the consumer still has confidence in the market, still wants to pursue the pastime, and is prepared to invest.
And we need to recruit Doctor Who now and get it in our chart. Do you see that there? You see that there? Oh, that's my sonic screwdriver. That is. New milestones for pricing. Let's compare 2018 with 2025. So,
yeah,
that's my TARDIS impersonation.
I got you.
In 2018, I was paying £15,000 for a motorhome. What does that translate to now in 2025? How much will I be paying now?
I reckon there are some new milestone price points in the market. So, 2018, 15k would have got you into the motorhome that wasn't riddled with damp and was still very usable. I think now it's 25k. I think that's where a realistic starting budget. We had a lovely young lady come in the shop yesterday, and she said, I'm looking for a motorhome. Do you have anything around 11 grand? Why it was 11, I don't know.
Because that's what she had.
Yeah, why not 10? 10 or 12? But yes, that was her budget. We don't have anything at that price point. And there is stuff out there for sale at that price point, but you're going to be buying I think a box of problems. I think 25k is a new realistic starting point, where, as I say, 7 years ago, it was more like 15k.
And let's keep that in context. If you're buying a car, 11 grand wouldn't buy you the most fantastic car in the world either, would it? So in 2018, if I was spending £40,000, what's that then?
50k, 55k,
£85,000. Sorry, £65,000.
It's probably going to be 85k.
Right, there you go. So that's how much things have gone up by. Yeah. So what is driving the price increases? Is it just pandemic and war?
It has been. Supply chain is the huge issue, and the cost of supply. So you've got to remember that the rolling stock, the van it's built on, has gone up in price. The cost of all the materials to build it and convert it has gone up in price. Supply chain itself, so road transport, haulage, shipping costs have all gone up in price. Even the carrier cost to deliver the widgets has gone up in price. And then you've got the transportation cost of delivering the rolling stock once it's a motorhome. That's all massively gone up in price. We've heard, haven't we, about container prices going up from $2,500 a container to $25,000 a container. They've come back down again now. But in the back end of this supply chain, all the costs have gone up, and then supplying costs have gone up. So here in the UK, our own operating costs have gone up. HR has gone up a bit for many small businesses. It's going up again in April. We've seen utility prices going up. Rates have gone up. Our own business rates here are going up a significant amount. Rents are going up. Landlords are wanting more money. So the costs of operating a business have gone up and up and up, and that is what's propping up the costs.
And you've already said that there's no price bubble. We aren't looking out through a bubble. It's going to burst and everything's going to get cheap again.
The only way that could happen is if all those supply costs were to suddenly reduce, and that is not on the radar, or a geopolitical event that was to cause it, like we saw in 2020. And then buying a motorhome is probably off everyone's agenda anyway. So I think the lesson we learnt is, if you can go back in time in your TARDIS and buy a motorhome in 2018 and sell it today, that would be great. And the lesson I've learned is just buy one now, because you never know what's around the corner. And a motorhome, of course, affords you fantastic adventures, brilliant memories, escape from the norm and the humdrum. Just go and do it. There's too many reasons to delay and wait. We're waiting till we retire. Why? Just go and do it. Just go and have that great experience of using a motorhome and go and explore the UK and Europe and further afield.
Norman Humdrum, that's my solicitors.
Is it?
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
And is brought to you with thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe. Okay, it's time for the Q&A, the questions and answers, where you ask the questions and Motorhome Matt, he gives the answers. If he doesn't know, he'll ask somebody who does. First of all, Collins in Harrow.
Morning, Matt. It's Colin from Harrow. We've got a pipe-top LPG gas bottle in the gas cabinet, which we top up as we drive around the country. At the moment, we have no plans to put a backup bottle in the other part of the gas cabinet. I'm wondering if we can use this for storage, or are there regulations about leaving it empty? We're thinking of things like the water hose, jump leads, maybe even the backup battery to transfer weight from the back of the van to the front. Be appreciated if you've got any comments. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Colin in Harrow. The first thing that occurs to me is he's talking about putting something which might be electrical next to something which has got gas in it.
Yeah.
And just as somebody doesn't know what he's talking about, that doesn't seem like a great idea.
It's not a clever idea. Definitely, Colin, don't do this. You shouldn't be mixing gas and electrics at that close proximity in the same space. So your gas bottle is going to vent, and that's why you have drop vents in the bottom of the gas locker.
When you say vent, what do you mean? Gas escapes?
Literally. When you open the gas locker, it's quite common to get a smell of gas, and that hole in the bottom of it usually have some mesh over it to stop animals climbing through it. That is to let the gas out. So gas is heavier than air. It's like water. It behaves like water. It flows around the floor and is looking for the lowest point. You want it to escape into the atmosphere, and that's why those drop vents are there. So two issues. One is the gas itself could be ignited by an electrical fault. So if your battery was to short out, that would cause an explosion. And the second side of this is not blocking those drop vents. So filling that locker with stuff is putting those drop vents at risk. And in a habitat rehabilitation check when you get the living area serviced is probably going to fail and be marked down for having stuff in the gas locker. So just be mindful. You can put stuff in the gas locker, but you must make sure those drop vents are not blocked. So make sure nothing falls over and blocks them.
And you can use, if you haven't got a gas bottle in there, you can use it for storage, can't you?
If you're not using gas, absolutely, yeah. It just becomes a storage cupboard that's sealed apart from that hole in the bottom, and then you can put what you like in there, yeah.
I gotcha. Now, people talk about taking the Michael, taking the Mick. Some people are ruder. But from now on the Motorhome Matt podcast, we're going to be taking the Colin. And Colin's taking the Colin because he's got a second question.
Hi, Matt. It's Colin from Harrow. Thanks for the reply for the storage of stuff in the gas cabinet. Follow-up question. Can I use screws to secure a strap to the wall of the cabinet to hold the battery when travelling? And 2, can I run a power cable into the cabinet from the onboard solar to charge the unit? Much appreciated, your podcast. Thanks a lot.
Is Colin still talking about that gas cabinet?
He is still talking about gas cabinet.
And he's still talking about putting electricity in.
So I did go back to Colin. I said, you mustn't put anything that blocks the drop vent in your gas cabinet. I didn't really major on the electrical bit. So Colin, again, two things. Don't put anything electrical. Don't feed electric cables into your gas cabinet for the reasons we mentioned. The other thing, fixing a strap, that's a sensible request, but that gas locker is sealed apart from the drop vent. So you'll notice that even the door to it seals tight to stop gas getting into the motorhome. It's a solid plastic unit which is sealed all around the top. If you start screwing holes in it and screwing screws into it to hold a retaining strap, you're going to break that seal, which is going to allow gas to get into your living area. So don't do it. You could arguably put a fixture and fitting in there to retain something, not a battery, nothing electrical, and that doesn't penetrate the wall or seal it. Yes, you could do that. But again, those drop vents must be protected, and don't mix electric and gas.
Have you ever met Colin?
Many times.
Yeah. How old is he?
But old enough.
What, 20, 30, 40, 50?
No, he's retired.
Is he?
Yeah.
You surprised me.
We love Colin. He's got a very lovely Rymore motorhome, which he spent a long time considering very carefully, and it was a great pleasure to help him on that journey.
I'm surprised he's
you're
made
welcome.
It this far with mixing electricity and gas. I've got Les Chase in Lymington. He says he wants to use a motorhome for business. I can take my Ford Transit to wherever and sleep in the cab, but I'm not allowed to use my comfortable motorhome for business. I'm new to motorhoming, having just sold an apartment overseas and now just bought an Eldest Majestic 135 with a rear hatch and plenty of rear space, weight allowance if needed. I've seen other motorhomes in the past being used, but are they insured for commercial usage? And that's the point. All I can get is for domestic and social usage only, but not for business use.
Yeah, so we approached Ripe about this, and they came back to us and said, "Hi Les, unfortunately we don't provide cover for commercial use of your van. You might need to look into insurance from companies who do provide commercial van insurance, but we would recommend you look into the details of this. An issue you could encounter with this type of policy is running the risk of the interior of your van not being covered, which is something we spoke to a lot of people about last year at the festivals we attended as being a problem for them. Perhaps you could take a look at BIBA for advice at www.biba.org.uk. We hope you get sorted. Sorry we couldn't help in this instance, but happy to help if you have other queries. Thanks." And that was Mel from the team at Ripe.
Now, Ripe's been up front and honest there. Have you got any other advice then for Liz?
I would suggest this is a commercial insurance because it's for hire and reward is what you're using the vehicle for, and so you would need to look at a business insurance policy, as Ripe say. And don't forget to save 15% on your insurance premium by using the code MOTORHOMEMATT over the phone, or simply click the link in the description.
Chris Bailey's in Scarborough. Does the 5% overweight allowance apply on the continent? What is he talking about?
Yeah, so this is when you're being weighed and there's a threshold of 5% to be overweight. Just to forgive you a little bit. Potentially, yes, it would depend on the toll booth operator or the police officer weighing you or traffic officer weighing you. I have in the past appealed at toll booths when we've been just over the weight allowance and said that because we're a motorhome, would you put us into a lower toll booth class? And they said yes, so it has worked. So it's always worth appealing.
There you go. Now, if somebody wants you to answer a question, how do they get in touch?
Easy. Head to mhmp.info/Ask Matt. We would love it if you would record your question like Colin from Harrow and tell us where in the country you are, or you can fill in the form and we'll read it for you.
Or you can leave us a review at mhmp.info/review. That's MHMP, Motorhome Matt Podcast. .info/review.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please remember to click subscribe.